Hey everybody, the Reswirl here, and welcome back to Lost Odyssey. Okay, I want to find one of the memories or dreams that are around here. I keep calling them memories, I know. I don't know why. It's just something that I keep doing. I believe it takes place in the here we go. Hey, you can't just take that. Hey, come back here. Fleet-footed slan, make me. Wow. Ah, he gets me every time. I'm going to teach him a lesson one of these days. There we go. Okay. So what's this one? The Lottery of Life. Jesus. Having kids is like playing the lottery. That was how the police commissioner put it. With a grim smile and a sigh, he was a man in charge of domestic security. Sometimes you pick a winner and sometimes you pick a loser. Life is like that. You can't control it. Kaim responded with a silent nod. Not that he was convinced that you could divide people into winners and losers, but that was how they did it here in this country that was the size of the city. He had no choice but to recognize it as reality, because the man who kept the peace here believed it, and this nation was known for having the best public safety of all the countries in the region. Every kid in there is a loser, he spat out, jerking his chin towards the juvenile prison visible from his office window. But to hold young criminals, this was the largest and the most strictly run and most closely guarded prison to be seen in any of the neighbouring countries. Its treatment of its young inmates was also the harshest. You're a foreigner, Kaim, so you may not approve, but we have our own way of doing things. I see, Kaim said. Losers are losers. There's nothing you can do to make losers into winners. It's never going to happen, far from it. If you coddle losers, they just turn into bigger losers and give the decent people a lot of trouble. See what I mean? That's one way of looking at things. Kaim's deliberate irony was lost on the police commissioner. No, it's the only way. If you're going to have a safe, peaceful country, he declared, and we'll expect you to abide by this view too. Kaim had nothing more to say to him. If he were to insist on confronting the police commissioner, he might be seen as questioning the authorities, which could land him in the adults' prison. This would be easy enough to bring about for the police commissioner, and indeed for anyone in the city-state who stood on the side of the powers that be. The commissioner glanced again toward the juvenile prison. They built that place 80 years ago, he said, which is to say the very first building they made when the present political system came into being was a prison to throw young offenders into. Kaim knew this. For Kaim, whose life went on forever, events of 80 years before could well have happened yesterday. 80 years earlier, this country had experienced a coup d'état. The revolutionary government ruled the people under a military dictatorship and jailed every last person suspected of disturbing the peace and order. The government was especially wary of younger criminals. There's a limit to how serious a kid's crimes can be, but let them get away with those, and the next thing you know, they'll be doing really bad stuff. They might be satisfied with shoplifting at first, but soon they're into burglary. Muggings, they start using weapons, and in the end they think nothing of killing people. You have to nip them in the bud. The kids sent to prison were fed the absolute minimum to keep them alive. No doctor saw them if they fell sick or were injured, subjected to such harsh imprisonment. They succumbed one after another, and more than a few of them ended up as cold corpses pitched out the back door. Whenever one did manage to serve out his term and return to the outside world, he found it impossible to erase the brand of loser. Children with criminal records were soundly rejected by respectable society. The social system was structured in such a way that nothing worked for them: employment, marriage, even finding a place to live. Expelled by society, these boys and girls returned to crime as a way to stay alive, eventually ending up in adult prison. With a bitter smile, the police commissioner said to Kaim, I'm sure this all sounds terrible to an outsider like you. Kaim answered with a slight nod. This only served to increase the bitterness of the commissioner's smile. I know what you are thinking, he said, and to tell you the truth, I sometimes think the system is a little too harsh on them too. But you have to realize that we are not just punishing bad kids. We're also holding them up as an example to the good ones. What would they think if they saw the ex-criminals out on the street again walking along like nothing ever happened? They'd figure that even if they got their hands dirty and spent a few years in jail, they could just go back to their old lives. What's that society's punishment is no big deal. And that they can get away with murder. We wouldn't want our kids to be like that, would we? So the only thing is for us grown-ups to teach them. Look at those guys, we can say. All it takes is one bad deed and your life is over, so you'd better listen to your parents and teachers and be good. Wow. He definitely had a point. Kaim was willing to grant him that, but still the Commissioner must have noticed a hint of shadow crossing Kaim's face as he shifted his tone of voice. With bureaucratic conviction, he declared, the authorities have received word that there is going to be a coup. Of course, the military has everything under control, so there's nothing to worry about. They could suppress it right now if they wanted to. They could easily attack the agitators and capture the ringleaders of the plot. In this case, though, they have decided to let it get started in order to smoke out every last one of the reactionary elements. According to the government's intelligence, the uprising was scheduled to occur that very night. We are prepared for just about any eventuality, but there is always the possibility of the unexpected. If there were a riot inside the juvenile prison timed to coincide with a rebellion, that could be a real problem. This is why Kaim had been hired as a temporary prison guard, a bodyguard for the state. We're counting on your skills as a seasoned warrior, which is why we're entrusting you with such a major responsibility. Be sure you live up to our expectations. If you have to resort to violence, we have no problem with that. Whatever you do, it will be for the sake of law and order. It will be in order to protect the happy lives of the decent citizens of our nation. Carry out your duties with complete dedication of body and soul. The Commissioner handed Kaim a one-page document. It was literally a license to kill. Jeez. Act without the slightest restraint. All the prison guards have one of these. But still, if you hesitate to impose the ultimate punishment on a single loser, then countless winners among the outstanding citizenry must suffer the consequences. You understand, I'm sure. Once a loser, always a loser. Rather than living with such a burden, they themselves might be happy to have you kill them and get it over with. Kaim accepted the document from the Commissioner without comment. That completes our contractual agreement. Now assume your post. With a perfectly straight face, the Commissioner cautioned Kaim, just make sure you don't let any foolish compassion get in your way. Bloody hell, these guys are heartless. Oh god. The season was midwinter, but Kaim found no hint of fire burning in the juvenile prison. In their tiny solitary cells, the young inmates wrapped in ragged blankets, lay helplessly in the dark. Painful moaning came from one cell, suggesting its inmate might be running a fever. From another came unbroken shrill mean laughter that could only the person's mind had snapped. That could only mean the person's mind had snapped. That makes more sense. What you see is what you get, said the veteran guard guiding Kaim on his first round of inspection. Not one of those faces show any life, so even if something were to happen, these pitiful creatures couldn't do a damn thing. They are losers, alright. They are breathing, but that's about it. Is there really no possibility of them being rehabilitated and becoming winners? The other guard gave Kaim a momentary blank stare and said with a laugh and a wave, No, not at all. 80 years since the revolution and the change of generations has replaced virtually all the people from that time. Since coming of age, this prison guard, who had no memory of life before the revolution, had been implanted with the idea that people were either winners or losers, and he surely never doubted it. What is wrong with these people? They went out of their way to hire you, so it might be a little strange for me to say this, but I'm sure the kids in here are never going to riot, no matter how wild things get on the outside. Splash a little cold water on them and they'll quiet right down. There's almost none of them you have to worry about. Almost. Well, I can't claim about every single one of them. There are even losers among the losers, unfortunately. The guard showed Kaim to the end of the hall where he opened the lock on a door so thick it could be mistaken for a section of a wall. Beyond here are the punishment cells. This is where we throw the incorrigible losers, the ones who have caused trouble on work details, the ones who take a defiant attitude, the ones who show no sign of remorse for their crimes. Suddenly it was clear to Kaim. It was clear to him because he had experienced countless battlefields in his life. The punishment cells were darker and far colder than regular cells, but from the depths of the darkness from within each individual cell there emanates a quiet heat that could not be felt from the regular cells. The people in here were alive. They were not simply breathing, they were alive with real passion. The crimes that originally got them locked up here were nothing much. A little burglary, some purse snatching, flashing a knife, stuff like that. If they had just quietly served out their terms, they'd be out now, living obscure lives somewhere. Instead, they resisted and kept resisting. They called for better treatment of inmates, they appealed for an end to discrimination against former prisoners. The number of their crimes multiplied until it became clear that they would never get out of there alive. They'll just go straight from here to the adult prison when they grow up. It'll be 20 or 30 years before they can breathe the outside air again. If they can live that long, which would be quite an accomplishment. Huh. The guard concluded with a belly-shaking laugh, which was interrupted by a voice echoing from a dark cell. Stop that laughing. It was a quiet but commanding voice, though one that retained a hint of boyishness. A look of fear crossed the guard's face, though he quickly reverted to a sneer. This is the biggest pain we've got, he said. His name is Duran. They say he was the leader of a gang of juvenile delinquents on the outside, but here he's just a noisemaker. The guard picked up a bucket of water from the corridor floor with a thin sheet of ice on its surface and heaved the contents into Duran's cell. This is what works best on the kids. Behind the bars, the drenched boy had rolled himself in a ball. This should be enough for them to freeze to death, but the water itself freezes again in the early morning. So then their hair and eyelashes and any other hair they've got gets coated in ice. Some of them have lost fingers and toes to frostbite. Jesus Christ, what is wrong with them? The guard laughed again. Duran lay there curled up, but his eyes were shining with such intensity. It was as if he was trying to melt the ice with the heat seething in his breast. Kaim knew those eyes. They were the eyes of a warrior, and not just any warrior, but one of the very front line in a losing battle who watches for a chance to turn the battle in his favour. And Kaim knew something else. That the system was beginning to unravel. It had kept the people in a state of suppression for 80 long years, and ever since the revolution, but the very moment of its undoing had arrived. The prison fires started that night. Kaim, it's the coup! The guard came running to report the situation on the outside. Fires had been set throughout the city, he said. This was, of course, the uprising that government intelligence had anticipated. Martial law was declared, and the government was mobilizing the entire police force and army. Word had come too that the ringleaders were already under arrest. One element, however, had been wholly unanticipated. The guard informed him, the wind is strong tonight. Fanned by unseasonable winds, the flames were racing through the city. On orders from the Commissioner, we are not to fight fires in the juvenile prison. Is that clear? Do not engage in firefighting here. In other words, no one would be coming to save the inmates. It can't be helped, said the guard. The army and the fire department have all they can do to put out fires in the city and evacuate the people. They can't spare any men to protect this place, and we've been ordered to join in the rescue effort in town. I guess that means we let the kids out. This was a given, Kaim assumed. Left locked in their cells, the young inmates would burn to death. Don't be ridiculous. The guard shot back. These kids are all losers. We've gone to the trouble of locking them in here, and now we're supposed to let them out? Are you serious? Kaim replied. Are you serious? I can't believe you'd say anything so stupid. I'm telling you, they're losers. We don't have time to save them, and we're certainly not going to let them run loose. The Commissioner would never allow such a thing. He obviously meant every word he was saying. They were planning to let them die. Oh man. The flames were spreading quickly, and screams could be heard throughout the prison. There was no time to appeal directly to the Commissioner, and such an appeal would only end in failure, he was sure. Give me the cell keys, Kaim said. You're joking, the guard laughed. There was only one thing to do. Oh! Without a word, Kaim landed a punch in the guard's solar plexus. The guard went down in a heap, and Kaim tore the clump of keys from his belt. The first cell he opened was Duran's. The boy came out looking confused. Are you one of us? He asked Kaim. Are you with the coup? Not interested, he answered. So why are you letting us go? Duran asks. Because I don't like dividing people up into winners and losers. Thanks, Duran said. Spotting a big grin, he took the keys from Kaim and turned away to start opening the other cells. I want you to come back, Kaim said to him from behind. What's that? This is an emergency evacuation. When the sun comes up and the fires are out, I want you to come back here. You kids still haven't finished paying for your crimes. You must be kidding. Not at all, Kaim said. If you kids run away, that'll just prove they are right. Once a loser, always a loser. Is that alright with you? Don't you want to show the ones who rule this country that they are wrong, that people can change? But we'll never get another chance like this. This coup is going to fail. You can run around all you want, but they're going to catch you in the end. You'll always be branded losers. They might even kill you when they catch you. Diran turned to stare at Kaim. The prison was already surrounded by flames. Against this bright red backdrop, Diran's eyes still burned with the fighting spirit of a warrior. This country's political system can't last much longer. The day will come when you kids can leave prison with your heads held high. I absolutely believe that, and because I believe it, I don't want to see you die for nothing. Kaim turned from Diran to pull the guard up from the floor. Come back after sunrise. With this final admonition to Diran, Kaim hoisted the guard onto his back and trudged away. Ooh. Ah, these events occurred 50 years ago. An air of freedom pervades the country now when Kaim visits 50 years later. True, he does catch glimpses of young toughs and juvenile delinquents where the nightlife thrives, but he feels this is just a sign of the free and easy times. An old man calls out to him, "Are you a traveller?" When Kaim nods, the man says with a smile, "You're in luck, we're having a celebration in Revolution Square today. I hear the grand old man of the revolution is going to attend. It'll keep going all night long. It's probably Diran." "A celebration?" "That's right." "I see you were too young to know what happened here in the old days. We had a coup 50 years ago on this very day. The coup itself was put down in one night, but the rebel troops set fire all through the city, so the rest of us were running around like crazy in all directions. Fanned by the wind, the flames quickly enveloped the whole city, and a lot of the city people were stranded on a sandbar downwind.